Nigeria has just signed a £746 million deal with the United Kingdom to upgrade its ports. The agreement comes as President Bola Tinubu makes the first Nigerian state visit to the United Kingdom in 37 years, aimed at strengthening economic ties. At the center of this deal are two critical assets: the Lagos Port Complex in Apapa, established in 1913, and Tinkan Island Port, commissioned in 1977. Together, they handle over 70% of Nigeria's cargo trade, yet both have suffered decades of underinvestment and congestion. Is this an investment into Nigeria, or is Nigeria helping to fund UK industry? Because on the surface, this looks like a straightforward infrastructure upgrade: modern ports, faster trade, economic growth. But underneath, there is something far more strategic. It is a financing structure with very deliberate benefits on both sides. Here is how it works. The United Kingdom, through its Export Credit Agency, UK Export Finance, is guaranteeing a £746 million loan arranged by Citibank. Nigeria uses that loan to modernize Apapa and Tinkan ports. But there is a condition. A significant portion of that funding must be spent on British companies. This is not aid. This is export credit financing, where the United Kingdom finances Nigeria to buy from the UK, which means this deal is doing two things at once. Nigeria gets infrastructure, but the UK secures demand for its industries, particularly steel. Over £236 million flows directly to British firms, including a £70 million contract for British Steel. British Steel will supply 120,000 tons of steel billets to construction companies High Tech Nigeria and ITB Nigeria for the port deal, amounting to a £70 million contract that represents British Steel's largest export order, backed by UKEF. It follows from the government's newly announced steel strategy, which seeks to revitalize the steel sector. Now, to be clear, this delivers real economic value for Nigeria. First, port efficiency, faster cargo clearance, reduced congestion, shorter vessel turnaround times. This directly lowers the cost of imports and exports, with knock-on effects for inflation and business competitiveness. Secondly, lower trade costs, reduced demurrage charges. Demurrage is a fee charged in shipping and logistics when cargoes such as container is not picked up or unloaded from a port terminal within the agreed upon free time. It serves as a penalty to incentivize efficiency and compensate carriers for storage space used beyond the allowed limits, usually calculated daily. This lower trade costs, improves margins for businesses, and stabilizes pricing across the economy. And thirdly, government revenue growth. More efficient ports mean higher throughput and ultimately higher customs and port revenue. Fourthly, regional competitiveness. This positions Nigeria to compete with ports like Tema in Ghana and Lome in Togo as a leading maritime hub in West Africa. Fifth, digitalization and transparency. Automation reduces manual processes, cutting inefficiencies and limiting corruption points. And sixth, investor confidence. Very critical. With backing from the UK government and a global bank like Citibank, this signals that Nigeria is open for structured investment. But for the UK, the benefits are immediate. The first one is industrial support. Over £236 million flows into UK companies, including one of the largest export orders in British steel's history. The second is jobs and supply chains. Thousands of jobs are supported, particularly in manufacturing hubs like Scunthorpe. And the third is export expansion. UK firms gain contracts, market access, and long-term positioning in Nigeria. And the fourth, strategic influence. This strengthens the United Kingdom's presence in Africa at a time of increasing competition from China and other global players. And fair financial returns, of course. This is not a grant, it is a guaranteed loan. The United Kingdom benefits through fees, financing structures, and long-term economic linkage. But this is where the balance becomes critical: Nigeria's risks. But for Nigeria, this comes with real trade-offs. First, this is still external debt, and in an environment where the naira remains under pressure, any further depreciation makes repayments more expensive over time. Second, the structure of the deal matters because this is tied financing. A significant portion of the funds must be spent on UK companies, which limits how much the value circulates within Nigeria's own industrial base. And then there is execution. Infrastructure only delivers value if it is completed efficiently. Delays, cost overruns, or weak implementation could significantly reduce the economic benefits. And finally, compared to some alternative models, there is limited emphasis on domestic manufacturing or technology transfer, which means the long-term industrial spillover may be more constrained. UK risks. But the UK is not without risk here either. At the core of this deal is a government-backed guarantee, which means if Nigeria struggles to meet its repayment obligation, the exposure ultimately sits with the UK. There is also political risk. Infrastructure projects of this scale span multiple years, and changes in policy, priorities, or leadership could affect how the project is delivered and how contracts are honored. Then there is competition. Countries like China often offer faster execution and fewer procurement constraints, which means the UK must continually justify its model in an increasingly competitive financing environment. And finally, reputational risk. Because if this project underperforms or fails to deliver its expected impact, it reflects not just on Nigeria, but on the credibility of UK-backed financing itself. So why choose the UK instead of China? Because the models are fundamentally different. China typically finances large multi-billion-dollar infrastructure, often with faster execution but higher debt exposure and greater contractor control. The UK model is more targeted, focused on specific upgrades with tighter financial structuring and institutional oversight. So this decision is not just about cost, it is about control, diversification, and long-term positioning. But this raises an even deeper question. Was the UK the best financing partner Nigeria could have chosen? China could have offered larger system-wide financing. France might have provided smaller, more concessional loans. And the US model would likely have focused on private investment rather than sovereign debt. The UK sits in the middle, large enough to deliver meaningful infrastructure, but structured enough to limit excessive exposure. But there is a trade-off. This is tied financing, so part of the value flows back to the UK. This is not necessarily the cheapest deal, not necessarily the largest, but it may be the most balanced between risk, control, and delivery. Because in global finance, the best deals are not the ones you sign, they are the ones you execute. I am Adiola Kamalafe-Oluem. This is Nigerianomics. Subscribe for clear, data-driven insights into Nigeria's economy, and I'll see you in the next episode.